the drive. Tatum the finish. It is banner 18. The mission commanded is mission accomplished.
What's up, everyone? This is Noa Dalzell, and I'm here with a special WNBA-focused edition of You Got Boston, live from Minneapolis, where I'm here covering the WNBA Finals. I've been doing these You Got Boston episodes for the last few months, centered around the Celtics, who I also cover, but a lot of you have had questions about the WNBA, and I just figured I'm here. I'm in Minneapolis. I've been following these games around kind of throughout the playoffs, so I figured I'd do an episode just kind of discussing the league and what we're seeing right now with the growth of the league, and then also this phenomenal series between the Minnesota Lynx and the New York Liberty. And so feel free, as always, to put questions in the chat. I know we might get a slightly different group than we sometimes have, just because this is a WNBA-focused episode. And so if you're new to the WNBA, feel free to hang around and just learn a little bit more about what we're seeing, or maybe you've just been watching everything that we have seen unfold on TV over the last week. It's hard to put into words how great of a series this has been between the Liberty and the Lynx. So I'm in my hotel room right now. I just got back from Target Center, where we had a media availability with players and coaches on both sides. We talked to Cheryl Reeves, Sandy Brondello. I talked to probably over a dozen players about their perspectives and what happened last night. And I will begin by just making sure everybody knows what happened last night. I think you'd have to be not turning on the TV or radio to know what you missed, but this was a game that went down to the wire between the Liberty and the Lynx. And with a minute to go, the Liberty were up by 1. Sabrina Ionescu, who had a really quiet game, she had 7 points at that point, hits the 3. Biggest shot of the night. They extend the lead to 4. Bridget Carleton and Nafisa Collier both respond, and so it's now again a tied game. Last possession, Liberty has the ball. Sabrina takes the ball. She's going to run the clock down. She has Kayla McBride guarding her, who's a good defender. Crosses her up, creates a little bit of separation, and hits what I think is one of the greatest shots that I've ever witnessed, if not the greatest. And I've seen a lot of great shots. I mean, I'm not that old, but I've been watching basketball my whole life, and I think just on the NBA side, there's been so much greatness. The WNBA side, but when do you see a game-winning 3-point shot, not just from really far out, but for the second 3-pointer in the final minute? Like, it wasn't just that shot, right? It was the one previously as well. And then also just the implications. You got a game 3. Whoever wins this game is going to take a 2-1 lead in a 5-game series. And then just the difficulty, the range, there's just so many components that made that shot what it was. And then obviously the Lynx weren't able to get a shot off. New York pulls away with the win. And they have a 2-1 lead now in a series that they were down 0-1 after this disastrous loss at Barclays Center, and they've kind of rectified that and come back with a massive 2-game win streak here right in time. So there's a lot to unpack when it comes to this game between Breanna Stewarts' performance, Sabrina's on the Liberty side, on the Lynx side. There's just been a kind of a cast of characters that have stood out in different moments, and obviously Nafisa Collier is the head of the snake. Courtney Williams has been huge at times, but the Liberty come out on top yesterday, and it's just, I don't know. I was at game 1 and I was at game 3, and game 1 in Barclays Center, it was just unlike anything I've ever experienced in how a crowd just lost all of its energy and all of its momentum. That place was confident that New York was going to go up 1-0, and then Courtney Williams hits a 3-point shot, gets fouled on it, takes the 1-point lead, and then obviously, Breanna Stewart misses the free throw. The Lynx win in overtime, and that place was just absolutely stunned. They couldn't even really find their words to kids were crying. It was a wild scene to be a part of. Last night, I kind of relived that on the opposite end. So in this time, it was Minnesota Lynx fans, and I talked to a bunch of fans pregame. These are die-hard fans. I don't know if people realize the basketball culture here with the Minnesota Lynx, one of the most kind of decorated franchises in WNBA history. These fans did not know what they just witnessed. And so saw in a 1-week span 2 killer shots with Courtney Williams and Sabrina Ionescu's, and just kind of take out all the oxygen out of their respective arenas. And this is what makes basketball fun, I think. I think that the fact that, we get to be in this space where the game can come down to the last shot, and that's happened multiple times in this series. And game 4 is tomorrow on Friday. I expect another great game because we've literally only gotten great games in this series. And honestly, this entire playoffs has just been phenomenal. And I was at first following the Connecticut Sun, which is I'm not a beat writer for the Sun, but I live in Boston, so they're the easiest team to get to. So I was kind of following them along in their series against Caitlin Clark and the Fever, which had just so much buzz around it because of Caitlin Clark's presence. And then the Connecticut Lynx series, I was here for game 5 where Minnesota kind of punched their ticket to the finals. And then obviously the finals series has just been the best, probably the best series I've seen in my lifetime. Maybe 2016 NBA Finals. We'll see how this one wraps up, but just great basketball. And so I can share a little bit about what I learned today, just being at the media availability with Breanna Stewarts and Sabrina, and just all the energy from the Liberty players. I will say, like, the Lynx's mood was pretty good. Players came in, and the way that it kind of works is that players kind of station around the arena. And so there's a lot of there's this room when every player grabs a seat and just sits there. And then we get to ask them questions, and we go around and ask the questions. And so they were in a pretty good spirits. They were going to watch film later. They didn't seem like totally deflated. And I think they're going to come back and have a great game tomorrow. And, we'll see exactly what happens. But I think absolutely this was one of those outcomes that's like you have to mentally just come back and respond and totally kind of figure this out and figure out how do you leave that behind you. But also New York has to figure out how do you leave it behind you, because I think part of what went wrong in game 1 was the fact that in game 1 there was in game 1, New York was the one that, was devastated. And I think Minnesota honestly got so excited and so hyped about the win that there was this feeling of like, how do you even move forward and not blow it? And it actually reminded me a little bit of last year in the conference finals in 2023 when the Celtics won game 6 and Derek White hit the game-winning tip-in, and they were almost in disbelief that it happened. Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum, they're all kind of standing there like, I can't believe we got this win. And, it felt like they were the team of destiny. And then they, come out in game 7 and get blown out at home to the Heat. Not to remind people about that game, but, it had a little element of that where Minnesota honestly couldn't believe that they got game 1 done. And the next thing you know, they come out and lose 2 straight. I don't think that their mentality was in the wrong place, but I think it's hard sometimes to respond to these miraculous wins as well. And so certainly these teams are going to have to both kind of figure out mentally how to stay in check and kind of stay locked in and solid. And so I'm going to go through these questions, but first, a message from our friends over at PrizePicks. PrizePicks is the best way to get real money sports action. With over 10 million members and billions of dollars in awarded winnings, PrizePicks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. You can just pick more or less on at least 2 players for a shot to win up to 100 times your cash. Run your game all season long on PrizePicks. You can now win 100 times your money on PrizePicks with as little as 4 correct picks. PrizePicks is the best way to get action on sports in over 30 states, including California, Florida, Georgia, and Texas. PrizePicks is the only real money daily fantasy platform with an injury insurance policy, so your lineups stay in play. So even if one of your players gets injured, if your player leaves in the first half and doesn't return, PrizePicks keeps your lineup live. PrizePicks also invented the flex play, which means you can still cash out if your lineup isn't perfect. You can double your money even if one of your picks doesn't hit. Sign up today and get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. PrizePicks is the best way to win real money this football season. Which players are going off, which ones aren't. Make your picks in less than 60 seconds and turn your sports opinion into real money all season long on PrizePicks. I'll be looking to make some picks ahead of NBA opening night next week. In the meantime, download your app today and use code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Download the app today and use code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks, run your game. So I want to get through some of these questions here. I know some of you have been asking for WNBA related questions, and so I figured I didn't know how much interest exactly there was, but that I designate some time to answer them since I'm here on the ground. So I'll start with you, Tom. Thank you, first of all, for the well wishes. Yeah, I took a direct flight here. No issues at all. Honestly, getting to Minneapolis from Boston is so easy. It's almost easier than getting to New York because you land in Minneapolis. It's like a 15-minute Uber to your hotel, and my hotel is literally like attached to the arena because everything's so cheap here. So, a question about the atmosphere at Target Center. The atmosphere was ridiculous. It was so good. I think Barclays Center was probably a little bit louder. I always know I wear my headphones usually, like noise canceling headphones, when I'm in an arena that's just like so loud that I am worried about my hearing, and so I try to be mindful of that. Last night I didn't put my headphones in, so it wasn't like to that point where I'm like, okay, I'm worried about my hearing. Barclays Center I was. So, but that being said, like the thing that people don't know about the Minnesota Lynx, and I interviewed a bunch of fans pregame, and that story I'm saving for maybe if they win Game 4. But these are fans that have been following this team for a very long time. Like since its inception, they watched 4 championships under Cheryl Reeve, and they understand the fact that this is not like the WNBA is new to a lot of people and it's exploding in the last couple of years, but to OG Lynx fans, like they've been here. And this last night they did break an attendance record, but it's not like these are new fans for the most part. These are actually it's a pretty established fan base. And so atmosphere was incredible. Everybody that I spoke to pregame was just so excited to be at a WNBA Finals game and to be covering, to be watching this Minnesota Lynx team. And if you've been watching this team all year, you know this is such a fun team to root for. They haven't been a team that I've been on their beat or anything, but just every time I watch them, I'm like, they were my pick to win the championship. And maybe that's wrong now that they're down 2-1, they're probably not going to win. I mean, you never know, but they were my pick because they just play just phenomenal team basketball. So the arena environment was awesome. So was Barclays Center. Those were definitely the 2 best arenas for WNBA that I've experienced this year. Aces were maybe in that category as well. Connecticut's tough. It's, they have a nice fan base, but it's a smaller arena. It's a little bit quieter. And they're in a casino, which is a little weird. They're not like in a major city. So those are the arenas that I've spent the most time in. But Barclays for the finals and Minnesota for Game 5 of last series and the finals again, just been unreal. And I think on TV, I'm sure that it captured a lot of it. I don't know that TV can capture like the devastation of a crowd and a fan base that's like, it was just, they were at a loss of words. I guess I don't even know how to really describe it, honestly. Question here, but yeah, how wild is it that we've had the most amazing endings to a finals game in just one series? Yeah, I think I'm so glad that this is the way that it's happening, because I feel like women's basketball had so much momentum heading into this series. And then obviously, you never know what the finals is going to be like. Like the NBA Finals last year, I covered the Celtics. I was, excited about the outcome, but it wasn't a down to the wire finish every game. And so if you're trying to convert someone to be an NBA fan, like that series might not be your best sell for like, okay, you should lock into this series because, you're going to watch these games go into overtime. Like that wasn't really the MO of that round. This series, I feel like, is so important because it's capitalizing on the momentum of everything that happened this past year with the rookie class headlined by Caitlin Clark, by Angel Reese, by, all the excitement around the Liberty and the Aces. But really, I think the rookie class and just like the transfer of all these college fans has just been so, so monumental. And so, the fact that now, coincidentally, like those characters that, were so huge in the national media this year, like they weren't actually in the finals. But nevertheless, like this series, I think, impressed everybody. And so I talked to Breanna Stewarts about that today. She was talking about like, she's really glad that all these eyes and all this attention is on them. And these are the kinds of games that are turning out, because you never know what you're going to get. I mean, you could just be a bunch of blowouts in both directions. I mean, how many times have we seen basketball games result in a 20-point blowout, and the next game could be the reverse? Like I think of like the Minnesota Timberwolves Denver Nuggets series from last year. Like that was an interesting series that had kind of the opposite effect, where games were really good and I had a lot of fun watching it, but there were a lot of blowouts. And I think people want to see these crazy finishes and this incredible shot making. And so, yeah, it's pretty wild. I think it's perfectly timed. There's a new professional basketball league for women's that's coming together right now. That's going to be launching in January in Miami. It's a 3-on-3 league, full court 3-on-3 league. And Breanna Stewarts and Nafisa Collier, who are both teammates from UConn, are co-launching that. And the fact that they're the 2 stars that are now heading off in this final series and kind of leading their respective teams throughout this year and this postseason is just the perfect storybook finish for them. And just yesterday, it was announced that TNT is going to be broadcasting some of those games. And so, that was, I asked a bunch of players about that. I have a story coming out about Unrivaled for tomorrow, but this is going to be the first time that there's a women's sports league that's like player owned. There's 30 players that are participating, 26 of whom have already been announced. And players of equity and the highest average salary of any women's professional sports league. And yeah, Breanna Stewarts and Nafisa Collier are right in the middle of the action in the WNBA Finals with millions of people watching. Already the first 2 games set records for finals viewership. And so this is just such an exciting moment for women's basketball. I've covered the NBA all year. I'm covering the WNBA now, and it's just been so fun to be able to watch these games, watch these finishes. And yeah, I'm just grateful that the series kind of ended up being what it was. Question here from Tom. Do you think the Lynx bounced back to win game 4 the same way the Liberty bounced back and took game 2? I'm 50-50. I think there is definitely the possibility that the Liberty kind of close this one out. They really mean all business. Like, just talking to the players, I've been so impressed with their composure today. Every time, like, I asked Sabrina, like, when did it sink in? This was an all-time great shot. And then she was kind of like, it wasn't an all-time great shot if we don't win. And I think that that's their mindset. And not that the Lynx jumped the gun on it, because they didn't, and they easily could be up 2-1 right now, because I thought they played really good last night. But certainly I think that there's an advantage that the Liberty have, just that they've been there before. They have more experience. Breanna's won at championships. There's Courtney Vandersloot's done it. So, and then obviously, like, the core here was together in the finals last year. So if I had to guess right now, I think the Liberty close it out in game 4. If Minnesota ties it up, I still think the Liberty get this done in 5. At this point, I think the Liberty have the series, but the exciting thing is, it's basketball, so it's all just predictions, and nobody really knows. And certainly, I think Minnesota talked about it today, at media day. But there's so much for Minnesota to be happy about. There's so much for Minnesota to feel, not from the outcome standpoint, but from a process standpoint. They liked the defense. They liked a lot of the looks that they were getting. And I think, not to dumb it down, but I think the general sentiment was that, like, they just needed to see more shots go in, and they weren't able to get that. But yeah, I think it makes sometimes the loss a little bit more challenging, but certainly, like, the Lynx have what it takes to beat this team. I just think right now, all the cards are kind of, I'm starting to get this feeling that New York's going to get this done in game 4. And so we'll see. Certainly, like, I would love to see a 5-game series. So, I'll be in New York if there is a game 5. If not, it'll be all wrapped up tomorrow. And I also think it's fun to see teams win on their home crowd. And Barclays Center has just been such a party this year that it would be cool for them to do it at home in front of the fans that have, been so excited to support them all season. That was kind of similar with covering the Celtics this year. Like, we saw a bunch of players, go to, we saw them hoping to win game 4, and then they obviously lost game 4 in Dallas, and then able to win game 5 in Boston. And I think in the long term, in the scheme of things, like, it's great that they got to have that celebration in Boston. So I could see that happening to New York too. But I think New York gets this done either in 4 or 5 at this point. They just have so much confidence and poise and focus, and just so many weapons too. Such a deep team that Sabrina was able to have 7 points with a minute to go, and they were still right in it. And that just goes to show you how much they have going on. And so right now I have stories on SB Nation on Sabrina Ionescu and her shot, and kind of the legend of her, how it's grown. I also have stories out about Courtney Williams and her relationship with her father, because she's been, I think, someone that has kind of burst into the national landscape, and someone who's just been so fun to watch. One of the most electric players at the WNBA, in my opinion, and somebody that I think, as the league continues to grow, more and more people will be excited about. And so if you wanted to check out WNBA coverage, it's all on sbnation.com/WNBA. I also have Celtics coverage on SB Nation, as well as on Celtics blog. I will be going over some more questions, so feel free to continue throwing them in the chat box. First, a quick message from our friends over at Game Time, and then I'll get through the rest of these questions, and then I'll have more coverage tomorrow. There's few things I prefer doing than attending an NBA game or sporting event live, and you can purchase tickets to Celtics games or any other sporting event, concert, or show with Game Time. Game Time has a new feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets to see your favorite teams play live even easier. It filters out all the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats. You don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. With Game Time, you can actually see the view of the court or stage from the seat that you choose to purchase, and you can buy tickets with just one click. There are lots of cool features. There's lowest price guarantee, or Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. Curation makes it easier to save more on sports, concerts, comedy, or theater. You can take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time Picks. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code CLNS for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game time. So I'm just going to go through here. I see Tom asked what press conference from today was your favorite to cover. So the way that actually today was that it wasn't press conferences. It was just players scattered throughout, and then you could just go to any player and ask them questions. So the story that I was hunting was about Unrivaled and the fact that there are 5 players in this final series that are going to be soon participating in the first ever season of this 3-on-3 basketball league, which I honestly can't even imagine what a full court 3-on-3 league is going to look like, but that's what this is. And so, yeah, it was fun to just go around and talk to players. Courtney Williams is like just probably the best interview as far as just personality and just swag. And she's just so fun to talk to. She's funny. But then talking to Sabrina today was really cool because it was one of those moments where you're realizing like you're just immersed in basketball history, like live time. Like I'm interviewing a player who last night hit one of the greatest shots in the history of the sport. I think it's hard to argue against that. And obviously, if they win the championship, that'll cement the legacy of that shot. But so probably I would say Sabrina was the most fun interview to do today. And the thing that was funny with her, though, is that she didn't want us to get carried away. Like she really was so measured in her reaction to the shot. And she mentioned, Steph and a bunch of NBA players reached out to her. She had hundreds of people reaching out to her. She looked out into the crowd. People were crying. She had a lot of family and friends there. She mentioned this after game 1 is that, when she has family and friends that are traveling and kind of following along this final series. And so, yeah, she was just really cool to talk to. Breanna Stewarts also always a great interview. It's always more fun to talk to the winners because they're in good spirits. But I think Shale Reeve, the head coach of the Minnesota Lynx, also a great interview just because she's always willing to kind of talk candidly about the problems of the league, the problems of, that her team had. She even mentioned, there were times where we went up and Courtney Williams took bad shots because like a layup when you have Breanna Stewart protecting the rim is not necessarily a great shot to take. So yeah, it's always interesting to hear from coaches that are really candid. And I do find on the WNBA side, the players and the coaches are typically more candid. And like less media, like buttoned up from like a media standpoint. And that'll change. I think that as the league continues to grow, there's going to be a bigger emphasis on like PR training and things like that. And you see certain players like Caitlin Clark's a perfect example of somebody who's super like buttoned up and really professional. Like she'll never say the wrong thing. She's so well spoken. But a lot of players are kind of willing to speak more off the cuff, more casually. And from a media standpoint, like it's a lot more fun when they're kind of talking like a normal people, not like, like the media language that they use. But I get why it's necessary. I get why they do it. But yeah, I think that, just the ability to bounce around and talk to all these players and kind of help see them process like what they experienced last night on both sides was a lot of fun. And so I'll probably wrap it up here. Super grateful to kind of have the opportunity to be here in Minneapolis to cover the series. Again, plugging the fact you can follow along on sbnation.com/WNBA for all my WNBA coverage. And I won't be doing a whole lot of these episodes. I know this podcast is centered around the Celtics, and that's the intention and the focus. But I figured it was a good opportunity here in the thick of the finals to just give a little update from on the ground and see if you guys have any questions. And I'll be back to Celtics coverage starting this weekend. I'll be back in Boston on Saturday. We'll be at practice, and so I'll have more on the ground from you guys. I'm actually landing like literally 10 a.m. on Saturday, and I'm going to go right from the airport to Celtics practice. So I'll have updates for you guys, and then obviously going into next week for ring night. Super excited about that. Super excited to get the opportunity to cover that. Bought my dad and my brother tickets, so they'll both be in attendance. And just a full circle moment from starting to cover this team last year to actually covering the championship run. And so yeah, feel free to, if you have other WNBA questions and you weren't able to join live time, feel free to put them in the comments and I'll respond to the comments. I can also do another one of these if they do win, or regardless, just if there's interest, I'm happy to do it, even if it's just for a few people. I appreciate those of you that have been consistently tuning in. If you want to subscribe to You Got Boston, you can do so on Apple, Spotify. Leave a review, leave a rating, share with a friend, comment on the YouTube. It's good for the algorithm. But appreciate you all for continuing to tune in, to check in. And hopefully this was a helpful WNBA update for you all. Have a great rest of your day.